I am Yehudit Sidikman, and I am the CEO of HaLev, which is an empowerment self-defense organization in Israel. And we do many, many things. And we do the spectrum of martial arts and self-defense, empowerment, self-defense, and impact. But I also wear a couple other hats, and I'm a proud member of Women Moving Millions. For those who don't know Women Moving Millions, it is an amazing group of empowered philanthropic women who are dedicated to changing the lives of women and children globally. I am also a proud member of Lions of Judah, which is a Jewish philanthropy for women philanthropists, and very proud to be part of both of those worlds. And I'm going to talk about how, as a philanthropist or funder, we can assess programs more effectively to be able to know, what are we funding, what are we paying for? Yes, can we get, I use a PowerPoint because that's how I have notes. Yay. So making sense out of the differences between martial arts self-defense and empowerment self-defense, and how to be an empowered donor. Are you going to listen to me? No, not you. It's not moving. 1 second, we got to get the slide to move. Yes. No, we need the slides. Go to the, don't go to that one, go to the other. Oh, there we go. There, yay. Okay. So, the first thing I want to talk about, that there are different goals in martial arts and self-defense. And, you know, many people have heard me say this, but I'm going to say it here once again. It's easier for us to understand the medical metaphor than it is to really understand the martial arts self-defense metaphor, or at least for most of us. So, you know, to do a CPR class, I think almost all of us agree that it is very important for everybody to learn CPR, the Heimlich maneuver, and basic first aid, so that if God forbid something happens, you can be a first responder. And a lot of money has been invested in building systems that teach these skills to people. But I wouldn't necessarily want to go to them if I'm not feeling well. That I want to go to a doctor. And the reason I want to go to a doctor is because they have a much larger body of knowledge. They have spent a bajillion hours learning their profession, and so that they know everything that's going on and can assess and figure things out. And they never really stop learning. And that's kind of on the side of martial arts. That is the side of martial arts. Martial artists don't stop learning their martial art. And many times I've had women say to me, oh, I'm not a martial artist anymore. They had a black belt, they have a black belt. You're never not a martial artist. And that's because you get into the system of understanding the art. And it is an art. And it's an art that has very deep foundations and very deep principles. So, you know, I can tell you as a judo martial artist that I use my martial arts every day, because part of judo is about learning to step up, step on the mat. If you're not willing to take a chance and get on the mat and see, have the skills that you've learned, are they applicable? Do they work? And do they work against somebody who has the desire to beat you, you know, the desire to win greater than you? So if you're not willing to take the chance, then how are you going to learn anything? So stepping up on the mat is a life skill in knowing that I'm going to do one of two things when I step on the mat. I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn. So it's not winning and losing, it's winning and learning. In a self-defense class, we want to give people simple, effective tools for saving lives, particularly their life. So yes, it's lovely when we can learn skills to help, either it's bystander skills or help others or save our children, whatever it may be. But the primary goal in a self-defense class is for me to learn skills to take care of me. And most people don't want to learn more than CPR. They don't want to invest an entire lifetime in martial arts. And that's legitimate. Now, many of us, especially those of us with martial arts background, would love for them to hook into the martial arts and get into this wonderful world that we're passionate about. But it's important to know the difference. In the medical metaphor, there's a middle ground, sort of, and that's a paramedic. So we've got a paramedic who has really supercharged skills. So they're not doctors. I'd rather not go to a paramedic for what's going on with my hearing as I'm getting into a different age bracket. I want to go to a doctor who that's their expertise. On the other hand, I don't necessarily want a gynecologist at a car crash. So, they may be able to do something that's better than nothing, but I'd rather have a paramedic show up at a car crash. So, that's a level of skills. That's how do you deal in a crisis situation? For me, that's impact. The impact program that is also an empowerment self-defense program, but what makes it different is it's training in an adrenalized state, so that it's kind of like going through that paramedic training of having somebody yell at you while you're trying to figure out where the silly bandage is in your bag, because that's the crisis you have to deal with, and sirens and noise and smoke and fire and whatever it is they do to train. Impact does that for self-defense. So when a program comes to, when someone comes to me and says, well, we want to bring this to your school, to your college, to your, domestic violence center, I want, what is their goal? What is their goal in who they are, what they've learned, and what they know how to teach? Are they here to get people into a martial arts track, a lifelong commitment to, or do they have the skills to give short, sweet, and to the point tools for defending yourself? So that's goals. I get to do this. Empowerment self-defense, we base things on 5 principles: think, yell, run, fight, and tell. And I think they all have equal weight. So many people would say, well, if fight's the most important. Well, if fight's the most important in your program, there might be something wrong there. So we want to see that a program has a balanced curriculum. Think, what's going on? Good for me, bad for me, deathly dangerous or just irritating? What tools do I have? Who else can help me? Is there somebody else who might harm me? Think about what's going on in this situation and figure out what tool I have to do the right thing. The yell is about using your words. And yes, we teach women and children to yell, back off now, so that one day they may be able to say, hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me. And that will work also. When asked for examples of using my self-defense, many times we find a way to use our voice. It's clear. If I see a little kid walking towards an electric outlet, with their fingers sticking out, I'm gonna yell, don't do that. That it's a no-brainer. Somebody walking into the street who isn't paying attention and a car's coming, I'm gonna yell. So we have a natural reaction to want to yell, but do we have it for ourselves? And that sometimes becomes complicated. Many times in the martial arts, there is a yell. We do learn how to ki. We learn how to use our voice, but it's a very different type of yell. It's an energy release. And it's not necessarily a boundary setting. You know, it's about I'm about to explode. I'm about to put my energy into whatever it is I'm doing, but it's a different type of voice. So it doesn't necessarily translate into don't do that. Leave me alone. You're standing too close. I can yell, but it's an energy release. So that's a difference. Run, yes. We all believe if there's danger, you can run. Martial artists train to stay in the fight. They don't train to run from the fight. They train to stay in the fight and stay in the fight until it's over, which is fine. But we don't practice in martial arts disengaging. So if you want to have a program that's appropriate for teaching something that's self-defense, it's not just about the technique, it's also about what are the messages that we're giving. Can a martial arts program have empowerment self-defense pieces to it? Absolutely. But that's what you have to look for. Fight. Okay, what does fight mean? Fight doesn't always mean physical skills either. Fighting can mean physical skills, punching, kicking, whatever you need to do to get away. But fighting can also mean not backing down when someone is trying to take your job or trying to disregard your place in a meeting, and just standing up for yourself. So even though you may choose the verbal tools, boundary setting isn't necessarily fighting. So I can set a boundary, or I can choose to make my point heard. Two different skill sets. And I think, many of us, certainly most of us here, all of us here sitting in the room, understand the power of telling. And not just the telling of the story for I deserve support, right? I tell someone what happened to me, whether I was successful or not successful. That sharing allows me to get support. But that one of the pieces of what needs to be changed culturally is that it's okay to talk about the bad things. It's okay to talk about the icky things. It's okay to talk about the hurtful things. And it's okay for the victim or the survivor to share their story without judgment and shame. So that actually, to me, is very similar in martial arts. In martial arts, we do take apart, well, what went wrong? What didn't I do in that fight that I could have done to maybe win? Which technique do I need to work on? Like, we're willing to analyze what went wrong, or what do I need to fix, or what. So there is a telling that happens in martial arts of how did the story go for me, that has some benefit to it. And I don't think we always see that, because it's got its own little thing. In looking at a program, you also have to know what your expectations are, because when building a protective covering for yourself, how long do you want it to last? Is it a temporary tent, that'll just last for a night or two? Is it a house? If it's a house, then it needs foundations, it needs depth, it needs planning. And here too, if the program that's being offered has no depth to it, has no understanding of the true picture of what we want to come out with. Okay, I'll build you a tent. I'm going to have you, jump around and kick a couple of pads, and and I'm going to say go, 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 and you can do this, and you're really strong. But was it a journey? Did the people in the program actually experience a change in what they did, or did you just take them through the motions of building something for this one class? Because that's a tent, and that's easy to take down and pack away and forget you ever learned it. But if you want a program to have Lasting impact. Thank you. People have to remember I'm not bilingual, I'm bialliterate. So there are things I just can't find the words. So thank you very much. Yes, lasting impact, lasting impact. Then you need to see how the foundations are built. Now, can strong foundations be built in a limited amount of time? Absolutely. You know, we see lots of good housing go up. It goes up pretty quickly because it's been built with thought. It's been built with intelligence and planning. The goal is something sturdy, but easy to build and get up there. That's not a tent. You know, that's not we're just going to go in. We didn't think about it too much. We're going to have fun. We're going to dance around. We're going to yell a couple of times and kick in the air and whatever. You know, how did you build that foundation? Now, martial arts, you would say, well, what? We're going to put in deep foundations and pour a lot of concrete and put in lots of bars and build this really strong brick house. And that takes time. So what are the expectations out of the program that's being asked for you? You know, that they're coming to you to say, we want to do this. Another thing that always, it's actually a very cute story. That once upon a time ago, we had an instructor step up to teach a judo seminar, and he gets on the mat and he says, everybody does judo differently. And we were a bunch of black belts, and we looked at him and we scratched our heads and we said, no, everybody does judo the same. And he says, no, everybody does judo differently. No, we all do the same curriculum. That's one of the prides of judo is we all do it the same. He says, no, everybody. Each person's body does it differently. So if someone's coming in to sell you a program that is a one size fits all for everybody and every participant who walks in the door, then they're not respecting the fact that we have difference. There are different tools that I will be able and willing to use. There are different tools that somebody else would be able and willing to use. My journey is different than someone else's journey. My circumstance is different from everybody else's circumstances. So I want to be offered choice and diversity of technique so that I can pick the things that will allow me to be empowered. So coming in with a curriculum that is from A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and it doesn't matter how many people are in the room and where they're coming from, is not necessarily going to offer the support of the journey of reclaiming power. So in a martial arts program, because it's very individual and there is long lasting, there's stickiness. You're there for a long time. You have time to figure out what tools work for you, what techniques work for you, which ones you like the best, which ones you want to excel in. And there's time. When you're in a short program and you're being offered something that doesn't feel right for you, you're going to shut down and stop learning. So does the instructor have the ability to work with a group in a way that recognizes that everybody learns differently and everybody will find the tools that they need for their journey in life? And, for us at HaLev, I think when we train teachers, one of the things that is most important to me is we teach that the first 10% of any class you teach, so if it's a short class, it'll be 10% of that. If it's a 10-hour class, it'll be the first hour, is an assessment. So we come in and we teach. It's not that they're not learning anything, but we use that first hour as an assessment of who is in this class, what are their needs, and each one of them individually, how much energy do they have? Do I have a very diverse population or do I have a pretty homogeneous population? And even so, the difference among them. And how do I take that apart in order to bring them the best tools for them? So loud, bouncy, very high energetic, great. Let's start with something physical. And and then bring them into some of the emotional work and talking and speaking through role playing and whatnot. Or a group that doesn't want to move at all, they're not interested, being able to start with them someplace else and say, hey, okay, well, let's work on. And being able to make a program fit the people that are in the program. So between that and the difference between mastering and practicing is a question I once asked a group of instructors. I said, I made everybody close their eyes and put their hands up if your favorite strike to the head was to the face, or was their favorite strike to the head to the throat. And some of them put their hand up for one, and some of them put their hand up for the other. And you know what? In martial arts, in a system, there are rules. This strike goes here. This strike goes there. And my point was that, well, did she strike? So in the self-defense class, what's important is, did she hit? And did she hit hard? And did she hit as hard as she can hit? And can I help her hit harder by the end of the class? So, whether it's exactly in the face or exactly in the this and exactly in there, no, she hit, good. Encourage that. So mastering is an art. Going into something and wanting to be the best and do it the perfect way, and the centimeters and the, inches, and knowing exactly. One of my favorite learning experiences in judo was Fukuda Sensei. For those who knew of her, was at the time she was a 93-year-old woman teaching, Japanese woman teaching judo in San Francisco. And she sends somebody to call to me. I was on the other side of the dojo, and she said, "Bring Yehudit, bring Yehudit." And she calls me over, and she goes to me, "Yehudit, not like this, like this." That's okay in a martial art. That's okay in martial. They see me down there a little bit, so not like this, like this. It was 2 centimeters. We won't talk about the fact that she saw it on the other side of the dojo, right? Like, she was able to see that and make that change. But when we work with a group, if she's hitting, if she got her knee up, if she landed on the pad and she yelled and she used her voice, then that's good. That's great. That's that's encouragement. How do I encourage that? One of the challenges for many new teachers is, how do you teach? Now, see, I'm going to have a hard time saying this sentence. How do you teach and never say no? You can't teach empowerment, self-defense, and never say no. That's not an option. But how do you do your teaching without ever saying no? No, not like that. How many of us have had teachers? No, not like that. No, not like, no, wait, stop, I'll fix it, right? No. Wow, that's really close. Let's make it better. Whole different animal. It's a whole different way of teaching. So if somebody's coming into the room and their presence is my way or the highway, then that's not the person you want to be running your program for self-defense. Oh, we're not going to go to that yet. So you can let me pop back. Ha, get to see me. And you're going to tell me what time it is, because I don't have a time in front of me. Oh, I got a long time to go. Okay. We get stuck a lot, for many, many years, and it's got to be at least, forever. There's been an argument as to whether or not we should not call ourselves self-defense. Because when people say self-defense, we know what that is. Self-defense is some big, burly, muscly, sweaty person who can do high kicks and not necessarily the people we're trying to encourage to come to class. So we played with the idea of personal safety for a long time. Well, is it just personal? Well, yes, it's about safety, but wouldn't I use it to defend somebody else? Yes, no, should I? So how do you stay within, it is self-defense. They are tools that are mine. They belong to me, so it's therefore self, but I can use them for somebody else. It's not personal. I'm not only taking care of me, but they're my tools. They belong to myself, and I can use them to help others. But then how do we know the difference? What's the difference between empowerment self-defense and regular self-defense, if there is such a thing? So there are many programs that, what is the ulterior motive? If the ulterior motive is we want more martial arts students, and we're going to offer a self-defense class in order to encourage people to sign up for martial arts class, well, then they're not necessarily people who have the right tools, tools for taking care, for giving that over. Self-defense tools, empowerment self-defense tools, are about giving appropriate tools for people for the most case scenario, types of violence they deal with every day. I will give a caveat that this is a generalization, and there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, martial arts systems, including Krav Maga and all their friends, are systems designed by men for how men fight men. That doesn't mean there aren't things in there that are appropriate for other populations, but the foundation, the system was created by men for how men fight men. And many of the self-defense programs that are out there are designed by very well-meaning policemen or combat, ex-combat soldiers, or other trained, men martial artists or women martial artists who see what they do in their martial arts as the primary place for bringing the skills to the population, don't necessarily understand what violence is for those people. I've had many female martial artists, women who grew up in martial arts, say, I have no idea what it means to be a woman. I grew up with boys. I've always been a fighter. I don't get this feeling vulnerable. I just don't get it. And that's their experience, but is at least being able to acknowledge that helps you understand that you might need something else in order to, another way of looking at vulnerability or looking at populations in order to be able to say, hey, you need tools that are good for you. Empowerment self-defense is a system that's been crafted over the last 4 decades. Wendy, nod your head. Yeah, I did good, 4 decades, over the last 4 decades, okay, by amazing women, many of whom had martial arts backgrounds, but who understood that there was something missing, because there was a stream of women who had no martial arts backgrounds and said, we also want there to be tools and appropriate tools to go. So we had the women martial artists doing what they were doing, and the non-women martial artists saying, we want tools and we want to teach things that are appropriate. And together, this body of knowledge was crafted and nurtured and grown to become what we're calling today empowerment self-defense. Feminist self-defense that has grown into empowerment self-defense, and has a real benefit for I believe, changing the statistics. I believe it. I believe that if we can figure out how to scale this and make it sustainable, that we will be able to reduce many of the acts of violence. And I'm going to throw something out here because, I think much of our statistics is based on reporting to police or reporting to rape crisis centers. I have not to this day, I have not heard of a call to a rape crisis center that went like this. Hi, I was at a party at school and we were all kind of really drunk, and this guy was being really appropriate with me and he was trying to get me to go into a room with him, and I kicked him and I went home and everything's good. Right? Those are not the calls that get reported, but they do get reported to HaLev. We get those calls. So, maybe at some point, one of the things we need to talk about is how do we have a share line instead of a hotline, or in addition to a hotline, a place where people who have a positive experience because they are out there can tell their stories and get support and get reach. But that's, we base our work and we base our choosing what programs we fund. And I'm going to go back to the funder thing. Based on a lot of fear and stereotypes and, not looking at what actually is happening, what actually works. So one of the privileges I have in Israel is I sit on the committee of the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel. I sit on the committee for the advancement of women in social and gender equality. And for years, what we're seeing is a true reluctance to address that violence against women is a major health issue. It is a major health issue. And what we do and what we see over and over year after year is fighting for the rights of survivors, which is wonderful and important. But I would like to see how we can flip the script and help there be fewer survivors and fewer victims and more survivors. People who have been given the tools to stand up and do what they need to do. The European Union did a study of 50 studies on violence prevention protocols. And this is available, and if anybody wants me to share it with them, it would be my pleasure. But what they found was that the only violence prevention protocol that has research that shows efficacy, that it's working, it's doing the job, it is helping people prevent violence, is empowerment self-defense. And in the same breath, not only is it underfunded, 9 times out of 10, it's not even on a budget line, and that's got to change. So we spend so much money on trying to prevent. In Israel, I can tell you statistics in Israel because I can't imagine they're much different anyplace else, certainly not here. But 12,000 kids between the ages of 10 and 14 were interviewed by the Ministry of Education on all different types of violence and negligence and witnessing domestic abuse or being abused themselves. And 19% of the girls reported sexual assault. 21% of the boys between 10 and 14. Now, we all know that the girls are going to catch up and surpass that before they hit their 18th birthday, that the numbers of boys as they get older goes down and the numbers of girls goes up. But if we're talking about 1 in 5 children, and we're spending a lot of money on math and science in high school, let them get to high school in one piece. Let's give them the tools they need to get to high school in one piece. Then we could talk about math and science and how do we help empower kids with the tools they need to be, global citizens and able to work and whatnot. But if 1 in 5 kids is getting to high school already after experiencing violence, then we need to change something. And we need to change it both for our boys and for our girls. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest shifts that's happened in the last 2 years, and why we have embraced with an open heart and open arms the term empowerment self-defense instead of feminist self-defense. Because in order to really fix this world, we have got to figure out how to get these tools to the kids who need them so that they will become the adults who will know how to set boundaries and respect boundaries and use their verbal skills to de-escalate if that needs be, and will be able to stand up for themselves and fight if they have to and tell because they know that they will not be shamed. And so for funders, for donors, we're going to go back to that little share there because I've got a summary of the questions you should ask. I would hope you would ask suggestions for. Yes. Okay. Dinky dink. Dong, dong. No, not listening to me anymore. Still not. Almost there. We're almost there. Yeah. Okay. So when you look at a program, when you're assessing a program to see if you should fund this, does it help participants access their strengths and not play up fears? Are the skills relevant to the most common types of violence, including types of aggressors, that the participants are statistically likely to experience? Does it recognize a range of violence and response? Does it honor individual agency and choice? Do the instructors have the training and experience necessary for working with this population? And do they take questions and concerns seriously? And are they willing to say, I don't know, we'll check for you? So this is what we should be looking for. And if you ever need help doing that, you know where to call. Do we have any questions? Is there anybody else who would like to add something? Yes.
At what age would you recommend starting like ESD classes? Like if you could.
So it's a great question. Oh, the question is, at what age do we feel that you should start ESD classes? There's no question that every class has to be tailored to the developmental stage of the child using it. We believe once a child starts having independence, the independence to go sleep over at a friend's or to spend the afternoon with somebody else or to be in a, in a program where, they have a little more, not individual, they're less supervised. There's another word for that. But anyway, they're less supervised. They're more independent. Yes. They're more independent. So it's because the system is not a fear-based system. This is not about making kids paranoid of people. If I sent my kids to a swimming teacher who spent the whole time going, oh, stay away from the water, stay away, it's really dangerous, it's really dead, stay away from the water, don't go near the water, wait, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to go in the water, I would change my swim instructor. I would want a swim instructor who says to them, yes, water can be dangerous. Here are the tools to learn how to be safe in water. So, when you would start teaching your kids to swim, I think that you can also start teaching them what they need to know about being safe around people. We do those classes primarily with a parent involved because they're still a primary caretaker and they need to be able to have this arutz tikshoret, this path of communication, communication skills, right? I want this to be a conversation that parents and children can have no matter what their age. So yes, young. And then as they get more independence, they get stronger skills for dealing with things on their own.
So I would just suggest as a parent that the answer to that question is, as soon as you start having conversations about stranger danger or your body or anything like that, to give empowerment skills with that feels pretty key.
So Ellen was adding that when you start having those conversations about stranger danger and the icky feelings and stuff, that's when you should start talking to them about the empowerment self-defense stuff. I just want to deal with the stranger danger thing for a second, okay? Because let's say I teach my children, don't talk to strangers, or right? I then go with them into a supermarket, and what's the first thing I do? I talk to a stranger. And I talk to many strangers all day long. I mean, we were always running into strangers. So it's setting up a rule that I'm going to constantly break is not a way to educate. But if I can talk about icky feelings, or what makes me feel uncomfortable, I shouldn't have to feel uncomfortable. It's not. Maybe it's strange feelings, interactions, or strangeness rather than stranger. But again, so that's a good empowerment self-defense program will differentiate there. Anybody up there? On an earlier sessions, some of you are the same. I think we have some new people here also. I just want to comment that earlier we were asked, when you're teaching a child on how to be polite, say please, say thank you. You should also be teaching them to say no and stop it or leave me alone. And I pointed out that please and thank you don't have consequences. So I say please, I say thank you. I may get a hug or I may get a smile, but nobody's going to hit me. But if I say stop it, leave me alone, I'm taking a chance that something might go bad and not, that might not work. And therefore it's a different skill. It's a different skill set, and you need to know what to do if things don't go the way you want when you say stop it or leave me alone or no. Anything coming up there that's a question? Looking for questions. There are lots of comments, but you guys can all read each other's comments. The European Union study or the? Yeah, they wanted it. They said please share this. Sure. Yes. So find me through HaLev, easy. Do a Facebook page. Do you know how many Facebook pages I have to deal with right now? So we will make available on there's the self-defense discussion group. If people send their email addresses, I will figure out how to email you a link to the study. How about that? So if you put them up there somewhere, we will have email addresses. It could be. I've never done this before. So, yes, Diane Long. Yes, let's know about the trends you've seen about what's funding. And I'm not on mic, so you might. Yeah. So, okay, what are the trends that have we seen in getting funding or starting to get attention in terms of ESD? What I can tell you, I can't tell you who's doing funding. What I can tell you is in conversations that I've been having with women who are truly dedicated to helping fix this world for women and girls, they have no argument against empowerment self-defense. I'm not getting the feedback that I was getting 15, 20 years ago of, oh, it's victim blaming, is this. They're like, wow, that makes sense. And I'm not sure why, but it's definitely a change, and there is a shift. There are some really, really good programs out there, and if there's an ESD practitioner here who wants to get some suggestions for me privately on where I think they should be applying for grants and funds, then that would be my pleasure. I said. Lions of Judah. Lions of Judah. Well, yes, in every major U.S. city, there is a Jewish federation, and in that Jewish federation, there's a women's philanthropy. The women's philanthropy is called Lions of Judah. We in Israel have a Lions of Judah that is specifically for Israel. It is not connected to a federation. But the process for applying there is only for programs in Israel. And yes, they have funded empowerment self-defense programs in the past. The one in Israel. In the States, we have started making headway in a couple of different cities. They are seeing the need for this, especially as they're starting to send their kids off to college. So I hope the change is going to be deep and sticky, like it's going to stay. I think that as we educate people to understand, there have been many people who have been burnt. They've taken programs that were not what they wanted, and we need to somehow figure out how to change the script on what does bringing an appropriate self-defense program to a school mean. Philanthropy today in any on most levels is looking for major change. So a college implementing a program across the board, a city that wants to implement a program across the board, and has government buy-in. There's an interest in impact investing, and impact investing doesn't always mean making money, but it can mean getting your money back so that you can then take the same money and give it to somebody else 5 years later. So if you say, wait a minute, if you gave me $50,000, I would be able to do A, B, C, D, and because of the program, the program income, I will then be able to give that money back in 5 years. That's very attractive to many funds and philanthropies. So there's all sorts of new tools out there that on how they deal with philanthropy. I think philanthropists today are also getting smarter. Once upon a time ago, big money would go for a project that wasn't researched and had no efficacy. And my favorite story is the pumping water in Africa, and $4 billion was sent into putting in pumps in Africa, and they had come up with this brilliant idea that if we put in pumps that's a merry-go-round, the kids would play on the merry-go-round, it would pump the water, and the moms wouldn't have to waste their time doing that. What they didn't realize was that African kids don't think it's fun getting dizzy. That's a cultural thing, and so they built all these pumps. The kids wouldn't play on them, and now we've got all these moms and grandmas running around in circles saying, oh, we don't want to, this is crazy, this is more work than it was to start with, and most of them are now just rusting away. So philanthropists want to do good with their money, and they want to see impact, they want to see change. And I truly believe that we can give it to them. I truly believe that we do have enough research, and we will be producing more research in the next few years to show that you're getting good bang for your buck by implementing these programs in your communities, so that you'll be able to make this systemic change.
There's a question. My self-defense class was downsized, eliminated from an SU curriculum. Is this unusual to see less rather than more self-defense offered at the university?
I wish it was unusual to see less. It's not unusual to repeat the question. My self-defense class was downsized, eliminated from the NMSU curriculum. Is this unusual to see less more than more? Look, unpacking all of the why we don't want self-defense on a university is complicated. Because if I'm bringing a self-defense program full blast into a school, I'm advertising that we have a problem, or that's the belief. And if I'm advertising that we have a problem, then a lot of moms are not going to want to send their kids there. So there's this balance of, are we taking care of a problem, or are we giving tools so there won't be a problem? And how do we market and deal with that? And that's hard for schools, because if I have to, if we're showing that we're doing it, it's because there is a problem. Well, not necessarily. It's showing that we don't want there to be a problem. Question is, how can I make sure that that's the buzz that's going to go out? And that's scary for schools. So, I mean, I understand why a university doesn't want to be very vocal about the fact that we are now. We see this in working with businesses. Many times we have businesses come to us and say, a lot of our women need to leave very late at night, and we're uncomfortable for them going down into the parking lot alone. And we want them to have, self-defense skills, but we can't talk about it. Right? We can't talk about it because then people are not going to want to come to work for us, but we want them to have the skills. So you can do it, but we just can't say that that's what we're doing. So it's still complicated, but again, the more we talk about it, the less triggering it'll be, and the more positive it'll be. We don't teach staff CPR because everybody's having heart attacks. We teach staff CPR in case somebody has a heart attack. That it's a good thing to have. So somehow we have to switch that script for empowerment self-defense also, so that people get that this is not about saying we have this horrible, guys, we have this horrible problem. It is global. We have a horrible problem. It is global. So you can't say it's not in your business or not in your school or not. It's all over. How can you say that you're going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem?
So just comment that to a business, you can say empowerment self-defense for business success. That people are more effective when they have these skills in their jobs and with what they can do. So
that's a whole empowerment self-defense for business success. Yes, absolutely. And that would be wonderful. And many people will take us as empowerment programs. You can't call it self-defense. It's okay. It's like you're coming in to do management empowerment, or you're coming in to teach, the empowerment of our staff, whatever, but just don't call it self-defense. And that's, again, it's a script that's got to change, because it is important to acknowledge that there's a problem. I don't want to get all AA on us, but, part of solving a problem is acknowledging that there is a problem. If we're not willing to say there's a problem, and that problem is violence against women and children, we're not going to be able to solve that. So that's part of what we got to do. I have 7 minutes. It doesn't look like we have 7 minutes worth of questions.
I have a question. Can you speak to the resistance or the challenge of presenting ESP as a fundable modality for funders?
So I'm not sure where's the chicken. So they would like me to, I address the challenge of, funding empowerment self-defense to funders. Why is this challenging? I think, I'm not sure which is the chicken and which is the egg, but I think at some point, many empowerment self-defense programs and people just totally gave up on writing grants and sending things in because they've been turned away so often. On the other hand, those that do write are few. So there are few asking. Now, if I'm a foundation and I I send out a call for proposals, and 50 proposals come in. And 48 of them are for vocational empowerment of women. I'm going to see that as the biggest problem. Only one came in for empowerment self-defense. So, you know, is that correct? Is vocational rehabilitation the biggest problem for women? Probably not. I don't think that's research. But if the amount of grant proposals that I receive say that, then I'm going to assume something from that. And what we're trying to say is maybe you shouldn't be assuming that. Maybe you should, maybe you're not getting proposals for it because there's a group of people who have not seen any success in doing that, and they're so busy doing what they're doing that. So we need an incubator. We need a lot of things. And as a matter of fact, we just spent the last week talking about a lot of the things we need to make this more effective and better and stronger and able to become sustainable and scalable.
Do we know of any universities that have successfully implemented an ESD program that's supported by the school administration?
Do we know of any schools, any universities that have implemented successfully an ESD program? Would you like to come and answer that? So I'm gonna have Julie do that one for us.
I think there's several schools that have implemented successful programs. One that was a stronghold in this movement was University of North Dakota until just recently. And they had that program for 15 years. And it was part of out of Women's and Gender Studies, and it was funded by the university, and it was a 4-credit course. I also am fortunate to teach at a private university that funds our program. We teach 2 sections each semester, so 4 classes of empowerment self-defense, 4 credit on our college campus, and that's Denison University. There's also a program for credit taught by ESD practitioners at Ohio State University. That is a mixed gender program. It is not just women. And University of Oregon has a program, and Northeastern University. Wait a minute. Drew, University of Montclair State. I didn't get Marcia's. Northeastern Illinois. Where?
Yes, there are.
So the answer is yes, there are, but they are not in every state or every university like they should be. Actually, in every high school is where we really need to be.
So I guess I would just like to end with the absurd in what we just did. Because the absurd is we were scratching to come up with 10 names of universities that have an empowerment self-defense program. It's not like, we could say, oh yeah, there's like 600 of these out of the millions of schools. There's like a bajillion schools. 300 schools in the Boston metropolitan area alone. And we're scratching to come up with 10 names of schools that have one empowerment self-defense possibility. It's not you must do empowerment self-defense during your orientation for everyone. It's mandatory. You can choose a 4-credit or a 2-credit or 1-credit or no credit course for 1 semester if you'd like on your dime. Not the same thing. And I think that has to change. I think that has to change if we want healthier adults. Because healthier adults are adults that grow up with a minimal amount of trauma. and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. And I'd really like to thank everybody who spent the whole day with us. So thank you for that. and to all our presenters and the wonderful people who've been sitting here in the room with us. May the force be with us.